if Matt Colville was a shitty person, he would be lobbying against Dungeon World being printed because he wouldn't have a job. I'm gonna edit that.
Keep it in.
No, keep it in.
I'm not trying to start beef with Matt
references
Colville.
to
He's
it
the
for the
goat.
rest of the video, so you can't edit it out.
Yeah.
Hello, I am Ronald, the Rules Lawyer, and I'm here with 2 other YouTube creators and people I've met via my channel and being on the internet and talking about RPGs. And, well, it was actually Austin of Tabletop Bro channel who brought up the idea of getting together and doing something together. And then I invited Dom of Domble Builds to join us as well. And I particularly want to talk to you guys, have a chat, because you're both folks who have an interest in Pathfinder 2e. And Austin, you have done a little Pathfinder 2e of GMing it and want to do more playing or GMing. And Dom, you have some experience also. Oh, and I know both of you have interest in other RPGs. And for me personally right now, I have been kind of proselytizing, preaching the good word about Pathfinder 2e. But I also realize that I think every GM for any RPG system benefits from learning about other systems and seeing how other systems approach the whole idea of doing sitting together around a table and doing a game. So I'm actually reading through Call of Cthulhu lately, Dungeon World, and I want to know about other systems that I should check out. So I would want to hear from you guys. And also, a passion of mine has always been to, talk to people about Pathfinder 2e, particularly those who want to know more and answer their questions. So I thought, let's talk.
We'd also appreciate a like for this video, and if you like what we have to say, to subscribe to our channels.
I talked to you first, Austin. Why don't you say who you are, what your channel is, and what your gaming history is?
Well, thanks for having me on, Ronald. It's a pleasure to be here. Dom, did you find like shit just hit the fan the second he started talking and doing like the intro voice? It was just like we were just schmoozing, and then all of a sudden he goes into it. I'm like, oh, now it's real.
What do I do?
Right? I'm like, technically, I started playing in 2013, my freshman year of college. Some of my dorm mates were playing. They're like, hey, you want to play Dungeons and Dragons? And I was like, all right, cool. Like, I played WoW like all throughout high school, middle school. I was the absolute worst player. Like, you would have fucking hated me. I was miserable. Like, I didn't read the rules at all. I didn't give a shit. I was like, when you were like playing around as a kid and someone would be like, I shot you, and you're like, no, you didn't shoot me. I dodged out of the way like at the last second. Like, I was doing that. I was horrible. So I don't really count that.
Wait, was this 4th edition? You said 2013.
This is 4th edition. Yeah. 2013. The first game I was introduced to that wasn't D&D was this game called Paranoia. You may have heard of it. Dom knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. It's like 1984 Big Brother, like bunkers, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, instead of Big Brother, it's like Mother Computer or something.
Like
I haven't actually played it, but I want to. And it's designed to be that kind of game where everyone gets in each other's way and you just get ridiculous and stupid with it. Your character dies like that, you don't worry about it, you just bring in the next guy.
It is a freaking blast. But yeah, so then that was the first game I played. But then after that, I didn't really know that much about other games. I knew they existed, of course, kind of in the background, but I never looked into it. And then one of my buddies was like obsessed with this game called Pasión de las Pasiones. It's a Powered by the Apocalypse game about a Mexican soap opera, or you're playing a Mexican soap opera.
Oh, that sounds so fun! Oh my god, I have friends who totally sit down for that.
Totally.
Say things in dramatic Spanish.
We never actually played it, but that kind of introduced me to PbtA because literally all this motherfucker would say is, oh, Powered by the Apocalypse, Powered by the Apocalypse, Powered by the Apocalypse. A year later, when she introduced us to Masks, she was like, yeah, Masks is a Powered by the Apocalypse game. And I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up about this Powered by the Apocalypse shit. But ran a single session. I was like, this game is amazing. It is so much freaking fun. Big fan. So that was kind of the first non-D&D RPG that I got like really into. I felt like Pathfinder's so hard to introduce to someone who's never played a tabletop before, and I will give you time to just completely shit on that statement. But
I would just say use the beginner box.
I didn't get the beginner box because I'm a donut.
I would say just give them Path Builder and answer questions when they come up.
Once again, didn't know either of those things existed. I ran Pathfinder for 3 sessions, and then we switched over to Rules Light shit. I learned about Dungeon World, of course, started up a Masks campaign. I learned about the OSR. You basically see, if you go to my channel, You basically see the order that I learn about things in terms of when I make videos about them. That's pretty much a very long, overdrawn, soon to be edited out bit of me. Let's talk about Dom.
Well, yeah, I'm 24. I started with D&D 4th edition in 2010. As every, 12, 13-year-old at that time did, one of my mates that I was playing with had an older brother who told us all about how Pathfinder was better.
Of course, there's no nuance when you're 12 or 13. It's like, your game sucks, right?
And I was like, well, what do you know, stupid? So, yeah, I played a bit of 4th edition. I mostly ran. I got to be a player exactly once, and it was with, as you're very experienced with, Ron, 12-year-old DMs aren't often great DMs.
What?
So I was just like, I'm just gonna run my own game, so I don't have to worry about other people ruining it. Because in the end, we all run games because we're all control freaks. It's okay to say it. But yeah, so I bounced between 4th edition and Pathfinder. Then I took a little bit of a break, and then after high school, I started running Mutants and Masterminds, and that actually, Mutants and Masterminds 3rd edition was my main game for a solid 2 years. And that campaign ended up having 12 players in it.
Holy shit.
Wait,
at one time?
So a couple sessions it was at one time.
That's too much.
Yeah, it was
12 superheroes.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Because that's it. Everyone was watching Marvel, and they were like, yeah, Civil War had like 15 people in it. I can make that work.
Did you have them fighting each other?
So one player who was kind of like playing the Nick Fury, she was secretly evil for the entire thing. And it ended up being an awesome session because by the nature of Mutants and Masterminds, one person can genuinely challenge 11 other players. It was an awesome finale, and I would never, ever do it again. I don't know how I did it. I didn't have notes. I didn't have nothing. I just kind of winged it, and I don't know how to do that anymore. I've lost that skill. So after Mutants and Masterminds, I went to Unknown Armies, and it's very specific and very intense. It creates this awesome, rich setting that's incredibly dark and just genuinely isn't for everyone. That's still a game that I absolutely adore, but have not run a game that I'm happy with yet. Then after that, I went back to 5e for a bit because 5e Xanathar's Guide had just come out, and I was like, oh, okay, it's time to properly check it out. I wasn't super pleased with 5e when it first came out because I was like, this is too different. I was like, once they add a couple more classes, I'm going to really enjoy this game. Mm-hmm. Still waiting. Just before Pathfinder 2 came out, I started running Skull and Shackles. The Adventure Path, Book 1 of Skull and Shackles is phenomenal. I can't recommend it enough. You've been press-ganged onto a pirate ship, and the entire book is just getting out. I was going to keep running that game, and then I moved to Perth, and I started playing Pathfinder 2 with Age of Ashes. I said I'd keep this short. I've started getting very rambly. We played some Star Wars, played a bit more Unknown Armies, but then we really all settled into Pathfinder 2.
I realized I didn't say just a short thing about me, and I probably should. I am someone who grew up in the 80s, and I had that D&D red box, the basic D&D set, and I read it through and through. I really, really wanted to play it. Didn't have someone to play it with. And I did play computer role-playing games. And it was 2010 that I discovered Pathfinder 1st edition. And
you and everyone else in the world.
Yep.
And, the great edition war between 4th edition D&D and Pathfinder 1st Ed. I was all in on the Pathfinder 1st edition side of the war, and I then played it with folks in the civil rights group I'm in, BAM. And then someone told me, hey, that thing sounds fun and sounds like kids would like it. And you should work for Berkeley Public Schools, where they have this after-school program where you can teach whatever you want. I started with a group of like 6 people arriving the first day, and we eventually started to have like 35 people arriving at once. Middle schoolers, like 12, 13-year-olds. And the games are run by the kids.
That sounds like actual nightmares I've had.
I don't think many people could do what I did, because it really means keeping your head while people are screaming around you for 2 hours straight.
Oh, God. All right. So turns out Ronald the Rules Lawyer is actually a superhero.
All right, so let's assume people are watching have only played 5e and Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They're probably not going to know what Powered by the Apocalypse, actually how it works. So I'm going to say what I learned from reading Dungeon World, and people should feel free to comment on why someone who only knows 5e and 2e should check out Powered by the Apocalypse.
Powered by the Apocalypse, it really feels like Breaking Bad in that people don't believe you when you say how good it is because everyone says how good it is. Mm-hmm. And then you watch it and play it and you go, why did no one tell me how good this was?
It's funny you say that because that was my exact reaction. Like, my friend who was all about Passion de las Pasiones was like, oh, Powered by the Apocalypse is amazing. I'm like, whatever, dude, shut the fuck up. And then we played Mass. I'm like, why did you never tell me this was amazing?
What was interesting to me was there wasn't that divide between combat and exploration that Dominic was talking about. You use the same mechanics where the players just tell you something they want to try. And the GM uses they would be called a move and says, oh, this is you're doing the attacking move. And so you're going to roll 2d6. And you also do that if they're searching a room. And it's what often happens too is that sometimes the players are filling in the details too. It's like more of a collaboration between the GM and the players. The players get to fill in the fictional world too. And I thought that was really new. I've never played Dungeon World or any PbtA game, but it seems
I'll run it.
We got to do a mutual, you play in my game, I play in your game thing.
For sure. Let's get two other people. Well, if you get to this far in the video, drop a comment below. We'll invite you. You two automatically get dibs.
We got a couple of people that watch all of our channels. They'll jump in.
Yeah, the small RPG creator cinematic universe.
So yeah, you guys should say more about Powered by the Apocalypse or any of the other systems that are, relatively less known, and assume people know nothing about the mechanics.
You kind of hit the nail on the head for the most part. That is pretty much how it works. The way that I convinced my douchebag friends to play it is...
And they played 5e, right?
They played 5e, yeah. They played 5e in the past. Like 5e... P2E, the Witcher RPG, whatever game is all about it's the game, the role-playing game. Whereas Powered by the Apocalypse, it's very heavy on the RP. As I say in my videos, it's all about the RP, not the G. It's less game, more role-playing, and the way that I sell it to people who think role-playing's gross because they're douchebags is I say it's like you're in an interactive movie where you are the writer, actor, and director of the movie. And so things are way more cinematic, and my players love that aspect of it, where it's not nearly as gamey. It's very like, I'm just gonna be a fucking tool here. Like Dungeon World is what you want D&D to be. That's the name of my video. Yeah. Like when you first hear about what D&D is, like you picture how Dungeon World plays. That was a very abstract answer to your question. Maybe Dom can ground us a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I was about to go more abstract, maybe. Yeah, so that's the thing, is with rules light games, they're usually more about your character. There are basically two ways to make a character, right? You go, I want to be a paladin because I like Divine Smite, or you go, I want to be a holy warrior of Iomade because Iomade fucking rocks. Those two people, one's thinking in like class and mechanics, and one's thinking in character. And the thing I really like about Powered by the Apocalypse is that you don't take damage, you take emotional cues, So like in Masks, for instance, it's been a while since I read it. I'm probably about to get this wrong. But yeah, maybe. Like if you fail a check, you don't take hit point damage, you become emotionally distressed. You become more angry, or you become sad. And that informs how your character plays and not how your class plays. I feel like I've just bungled that, but go on.
Well,
get the glasses.
No, you actually, fun fact, these aren't real. You pretty much nailed it, except for some very like minutia that I'm just being obnoxious about. So there's 5.
Pathfinder 2. It's all about the minutia.
Yeah, exactly. So there's 5 conditions. I'm gonna get rid of these fake glasses. There's 5 conditions anytime you like basically take damage, and this is specific to Masks, but all PbtA games have a similar thing. Dungeon World uses actual damage, but if you get like really fucked up, it applies. So in Masks, the conditions are afraid, angry, guilty, hopeless, and insecure. So like Dom was saying,
That's
it affects how you RP your C, which my players never fucking do. Get on that shit, you guys, if you're watching this. It affects your stats as well. So like if you mark afraid, you get -2 to directly engage a threat, which is one of the moves, as you said, Ronald. And then you have to do specific things in the game to get rid of those. So like if you're afraid, you have to, I forget specifically what it is, but like you have to do something like incredibly brave to get rid of that or something like that, which my players always try to gamify, but I shut them down real quick. But yeah, it's all about like the term that you see in all PbtA games is follow the fiction.
So it becomes a prompt for the player to come up with something, to like something imaginative. They get to say, oh, you know, I see an opportunity for my character to get out of this funk, and this is my moment. And then they narrate it.
Yep.
It actually is tied with a mechanical benefit. It's not like, because what often, Critical Role has a lot of huge, great voice actors and role players, but you know, they act out, they describe what they're doing, but that there's not a connection between their description and, you know, what's happening in the attack rolls and ACs.
So like a way that I kind of think about it, and why I've been moving away from Pathfinder and 5th edition ever since I started playing Masks, is I feel like the gaming mechanics kind of restrain what I want to do. Use an example from, I've never played Mutants and Masterminds, so feel free to shit on me if I get this wrong. But like if you want to,
hold on, let me find my glasses.
So if you want to, you know, like stop Professor Megabrain or whatever, you know, you have to like roll your jump roll to see if you can jump up there. Then you have to like roll your attack roll to see if you actually attack them, and then damage roll or whatever. I've never actually played before, so I kind of pulled that out of my ass, but you get what I'm saying. Whereas in Mass, if you're like, okay, I want to attack Professor Megabrain, you just roll your 2d6 for the directly engage a threat move. And then if you roll from a 7 to a 9, you basically get to do that, but there's usually some sort of string attached. And then if you roll above a 9, like, you know, you do it, and then you get to describe how you do it. You're not bogged down in the minutia. The storytelling kind of goes on. It makes it flow a lot better, for me at least.
I just want to recommend a couple systems for you, Austin, that I don't know if you've played or not. First one is Unknown Armies, a percentile system where, again, it's very much like that, and it's about the description of how you do it. So it's almost a spoiler to say that there is a magic system in it. But the magic system is based on rituals and things that the players create, and about sympathetic in the like weird magic term, but like how things relate in public consciousness, if that makes sense. Say you want to do something to do with money, the more like types of money you have around you will affect how effective that is. And every single thing has a cost. And the other one is the Final Flight Games Star Wars system.
Oh, I played that when I was like 10. Well, I played it.
It's all play. They all do that exact thing where it's you don't get bogged down in the minutia. But yeah, sorry, I just wanted to jump in before I forgot.
You're totally fine. The other point, Ronald, if you fail the roll, what I think PbtA does that's really cool is if you fail, you get XP. In fact, you only get XP typically when you fail, or if you like complete a quest in Dungeon World or whatever. Actually, you know, I take that back. So every game has its own thing. Typically, it's if you fail a roll. Dungeon World does it really cool. There's a saying, this one guy in your Discord server, Ronald, says that everyone should read Dungeon World, and I agree. Even if you never intend to play it, it's such a great like treatise on how to run and play a role-playing game, and there's so many like niche things that you can steal. Video on that coming out soon. But there's like so much shit that you can steal from it that works so well. So like, for example, there's a system in Dungeon World where your alignment gives you kind of like a mini quest to fulfill. And then if you do that, you get XP. So like if you're like lawful good, to defend an innocent from evil, I'm pulling this out of my ass. If you do that during the session, you get XP. And then there's these things called bonds, which I think is like the coolest mechanic. Please steal it because it's dope. And it's how your players in a party are related to each other. So, for example, like Brokage saved my life from the 5th Kazakage. So, you know, that would be like a prompt. And then if you repay that favor, you both get XP. And it's a really cool way to mechanically encourage role playing.
I never saw the original Apocalypse book. I've only seen, but it seemed like the people behind the system thought, what are the ingredients that make a role-playing game fun? And then they formalize it at a meta level. So relationships between characters, plot arcs, villains with plans, and henchmen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not remembering all this at the top of my head, but it guides the GM into to know what can go on. And think of it. This is an analogy. Like think of it. There's a spider web in front of you, and it tells you where to grab it so that you can push it somewhere. If that makes any sense.
I'm kind of following what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but like it tells you how to kind of like at the big level and at the small level too. I'm not describing it well, but I know it's like even in the descriptions of locations, it's not telling you what's in this room and what's in that room. It's telling you here are the actors in this cave complex.
Mm-hmm.
Here are the wandering monsters, and this is the villain's agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, these are how the adventures read. Anyway, I think that person's advice about anyone in any RPG should read Dungeon World or Powered by the Apocalypse. I think that's really true. It's going to expose the skeleton of what you've been running. And if you're only exposed to one system, you're not even going to know that there's a skeleton there.
Mm-hmm.
And what other options are out there in the realm of possibilities.
So that person's going to see this and they're going to be so fucking stoked because they know who they are.
No one's mentioned them by names.
I forgot what they're using. I forgot their screen name, but you know who you are.
The awesome anonymous person.
Yeah.
Well, they're not anonymous, just that we're forgetful.
I just forgot what their name was, but
the other thing that I really like about Powered by the Apocalypse, even having never run it but only read it, is because the GM can only make certain moves, it teaches you how to run a game, right? It's like, if the players do this is how you should respond. If they do this is how you should respond.
Yeah.
And that's something that carries over to every single game that has a GM.
I think one great curriculum for a GM is to first start with something more like mechanical, like 2E, Pathfinder 2, but then read Dungeon World to see how you could like have an active sandbox.
like the way that Dungeon World has it written is just so elegant. Also, it's way cheaper than a Dungeon Master's Guide from D&D.
So I think a Dungeon World game is something to try to recruit for at the server. Yeah, I wanted to see, I wanted to play in Dungeon World and
totally.
also people within the Rules Lawyer server community.
Use promo code BRO for your chance to be entered into... I'm just kidding.
From what I'm hearing, Dominic, you're already kind of Pathfinder 2E's tactics are already kind of in your wheelhouse. I wanted to hear your thoughts on 2E, and then I want to hear from Austin. It sounds like you kind of like the storytelling part of the game.
Dude, it's basically he's crunchy peanut butter and I'm smooth peanut butter, you know?
The collaborating creative part of the game. And I just want to know, why the hell would you want to play 2E? What attracts you to it? So whoever wants to go first.
The way I see it is they're not mutually exclusive, and every single rules-heavy game has a rules-light game in it. And not only do you have the ability, I think you should be actively encouraged at any point to be like, the rules say that doesn't work, but that's not only is that cool and you can do it, but have a hero point as well. And that comes down to trust with your players that that's not going to be the norm, and most of the time it's going to follow the rules, because that consistency is really fun. But it does also come down to the fact that we like the tactical part of it. Like Ron, you were just talking about board games, and it is very board game. But there is something that, when it comes to collaborative storytelling that is character-based, that when you have that granularity of character creation, that every single option you take adds into a part of your character's psyche that I absolutely love. I'm studying film at the moment. I literally started this channel to help edit my student short films. I genuinely think that the crunch helps to inform the character and inform what happens in a way that is fair. So a lot of people talk about when you're telling a story through an RPG that everyone's like a writer or an actor, and then the dice are the sixth person in the collaboration. It just comes down to how pedantic you want that sixth person to be.
You just gave this like super poetic answer that like I have no follow up to that, you know? Like my answer to you, Ronald, is sometimes I just want to play a game.
That's it.
Yep. Like I said, pretty underwhelming answer.
Brevity is the soul of wit.
Which I mean ultimately comes down to the fact that I can't remember all the fucking rules in Pathfinder.
No one can.
If you can get the core engine in your head and how to adjudicate basic actions, and because the rules are defined, you can load off some of the burden of knowing the rules on players too.
Right. Well, there's a big problem with that, Ronald. My players are shitheads.
That's every single player. I personally try to make it as simple for players as possible, and then encourage a gentle encouragement to like learn your own character. But honestly, I don't expect it, because I think it's a lot to expect for a lot of people who sometimes you fight just to get people to the table, you know? And for most people playing the games, like obviously us three, we're in deep, but for like 99% of players, they've showed up to, you know, roll some dice, have a beer.
Like it's a weird paradox, like Dom was saying, where it's like oftentimes it's my players who are like, dude, let's play, and then it's like, okay, let's make it happen, and then all of a sudden, poof.
The solution that I've found for that is every time you have a group, I find that there'll be one person who is really, really super invested, like as invested as I am. And then the next game, I bring that person along. And then the next game that I have two people. And then I bring those two to the next one. And it really comes down to not kicking people out of a group, just being like, hey, we're good mates. We hang out outside of this game, but there are other people that want to play. And these guys were way more invested, and it would be unfair to them to not invite them. And I want to introduce it to these other people. And eventually you curate a group.
Ronald just has this look on his face like, you peasants, all of my players are invested. I don't deal with these problems.
So what's how are we going to play together? We talked about Dungeon World.
You know, my people get in touch with your people, and
over at the Rules Lawyer Discord, we've attracted a like-minded community of people who like PF2E. We've come up with a system, a quasi-West Marches system, in which pickup games, where basically people can say, I'm going to be running an adventure. It's level 1. Who else wants to be involved? And we have this joint database in which people have characters that are consistent from session to session that they can use in these adventures. Eventually, we may have events or continuity between the adventures, but the whole idea, the whole appeal is an opportunity for people to play Pathfinder 2E or GM it without having to be like committing to a whole 1 to 20 adventure path, or even just, 5 sessions. It could be 1 or 2 sessions. This was a lot of fun, and people who are watching already know my channel. You should go.
Is this the plug?
I guess so. Talk about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I have a really little YouTube channel. It's called Domble Builds. I called it Builds because it was originally just going to be character builds, and then I've done 1. At the moment, it's a lot of Pathfinder 2. That wasn't the scope of the channel when I wanted to start it, but it's what I'm playing, so it's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I try to upload every week. Yeah, check it out.
This just in, noted tabletop micro-influencer Austin, the Tabletop Bro, has just subscribed to Domble Builds live.
Wow.
Right after his pitch.
Domble Builds did our Every +1 Matters animation for the Marshals v. Casters event, and thanks for that. It was a big hit.
Well, that's a great question, Ronald. I'm glad you asked it. What do I do? So I talk about games that I have either just discovered and want to talk about and I'm not nearly knowledgeable enough about. And I just try to make really high quality, entertaining videos about just games in general. I told myself I was going to upload weekly, but I've got this nasty condition where like I come up with an idea and then I'm just like, but how can I make it bigger and more complicated and more of a bitch to pull off? And then it takes me like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. But it's cool. That was a really shitty plug for my channel.
I'm really happy to have done this and to have talked to you and planted the seeds for future games and future projects together. And everyone should check out their channels. I'm obviously a follower of their channels, and I think it's cool. They're cool. And our Discord server is where you'll find them and me, where we're going to be setting up more games, which is not going to be limited to Pathfinder 2E, which I hope this video made clear.
Yeah, I just want to say it's been super fun. I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, we need to get in touch more often. Go team!